Well, the 2020 election, whether it did nothing else, it could greatly change the projection of our country. It started out with Donald Trump winning a huge election in 2017 that nobody really thought that he could win. In fact, Hillary Clinton was in the 90 percentile to win that election. And then Donald Trump was roaring back to a second term, and then COVID-19 happened. And this led to a vast switch in the chances for Joe Biden to come in and do something that he'd always wanted to do, but was never capable of, as coming back into the White House. And this led to probably what's going to be ended up going as one of the most corrupt administrations we have ever had. And this is after Barack Hussein Obama, which, yes, Joe Biden happened to be his vice president. And some of you might say Obama 3.0 is third term, because essentially what Biden tried to do was all the things that Obama wanted to do in his 2 terms. But the amount of information that's coming out in such a short amount of time about just how corrupt this administration was, it is absolutely staggering. And we're getting into this Autopen and everything that goes along with it and what this really means for our country. So we want to understand the way that our country is supposed to work versus the way that our country often works. The way our country is supposed to work is you, the voters, you elect your representatives to go into Congress. Then whether they be in the House or whether they be a senator, they go in and they're supposed to do your will. However, this often doesn't happen, as we have something which we call the deep state and others call the blob. And this is a vast bureaucracy that lives in Washington, D.C. And these unelected bureaucrats, they have no accountability, yet they have tons of authority. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they look like. You wouldn't know them if you walked right by them in a grocery store. But they have incredible, vast amounts of power that your elected officials have given to them freely. And this is really because of no other reason more than that they are absolute cowards. See, they're scared to lose their own authority and their own power, as the actual elected officials, the ones that are supposed to run for you, are scared to death that they could lose their seats. And so then what do instead is they push all their power off to what we call the deep state. See, and then they can go into Washington, D.C. and do what they really want to do, not work. They can go to all the parties and they can shake hands. They could be with the movers and shakers. They could be in this little club. See, the Washington, D.C. club is the most exclusive club in the world. And what you don't really talk about it, and if you're in it, you know you're in it. But if you're not in it, you also know that you're not in it. See, it's not really like a formal, like you don't really get a badge, and you don't really get a some kind of card or a button to pin. But if you know, you know. And this club in Washington, D.C., it gives all kinds of great perks to them. It allows them to get into all these little parties that they want to go to. It allows them to meet all these very important people. It allows them to shake hands with all these movers and shakers and all these lobbyists and move your tax dollars from one budget line item to another budget line item and skim some off the top for themselves. So they get rich, they get powerful, they get famous, and they have none of the risk. It's a great thing for them. This also goes and helps the deep state, as these unelected bureaucrats, they have vast amounts of power with virtually no risk for the opposite reasons. Because they are not elected, they are put into place. So therefore, they can write laws and they can write regulations. And do not doubt me on this for a single second. Okay, they write more laws than Congress does. And when you ever see Congress and they get these huge bills that no one has ever read, and they pass them through and they ship them off, you have people like Nancy Pelosi saying, well, we have to pass these to know what's in them. See, that's who's doing it, is this deep state, these unelected bureaucrats. They're the ones that write the regulations. They're the ones that write the rules. And that's why it was so important, such a big deal for our country, when SCOTUS came in and got rid of Chevron and difference, meaning that Congress couldn't just take what their responsibilities and pass it off to the experts and say, they're the experts, they're the trusted ones. No, you're Congress. Okay, it is your job to run this country. The American people didn't vote for the IRS, or they didn't vote for the FBI or the DOJ or any of these other unelected bureaucrats and agencies. They voted for you. You're the ones that are supposed to write the laws and make the rules. And then if you don't, the American people are supposed to vote you out. But they have not seen it that way. And so the biggest threat to them is someone like a Donald Trump coming along, this big billionaire populist who actually loves the American people or whatever country they're from. And then beyond that, what's even scarier to them is they will actually do what they ran on. Just like Donald Trump is doing. He's going to like a bullhorn in the China shop, knocking the whole deep state over and exposing them. And when they threatened him, when they put bullets past his head and missed, this party gave away to you, the American people, the weakness in their armor. And it exposed something that was never supposed to be shown. We go all the way back to like Chuck Schumer back in Trump's first administration. And what did he say when Donald Trump came in? You remember back what he said? He said Donald Trump is really stupid for a businessman, as I'm paraphrasing here, that he would go up against the intelligence agencies because they have 6 ways from Sunday to get you. So don't you even try it. Don't you even dare, because if you do, we will take you out. And that's why it was so important that they either destroy his businesses or they destroy his reputation or they ruin his family. It's because they had to show you, the American people, look, if we can do this to a Donald Trump, if we can do this to a Steve Bannon, if we can do this to a Peter Navarro, if we can do this to any of them, just imagine what we can do to you. So don't even try it. Don't you dare. But Trump did. Because he loves this country so much. And it's ironic that it's a lifelong Democrat from New York who has done more to bring down the deep state than any other politician has. It's very ironic because it goes back to also like Reagan, who was a California Democrat. The same thing happened. And now we're having with like Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK and all the other people who are probably very similar to you, who probably consider themselves in the middle somewhere, but probably most of you middle left. And you would probably consider yourselves mostly on the left, like social issues, and maybe more onto the right with economic issues. But as the left has gone more and more crazy, more and more you finding yourself abandoned and in the middle and into the right. And that's why the Biden administration was so against the American people and why they got exposed and why this deep state, it's so important to expose now, because I don't think it's not a long ways to say that Joe Biden was not running this country. I mean, would anybody be shocked by that? But you would have the fake news and you'd have all these deep state officials, whether it be Mayorkas or any of the others, hey, they're talking about how Joe Biden was so sharp and how he was on top of his game all the time. Yet the videos told a different story. And then what happened in the debates is exposed what we've been saying for years, that Joe Biden is probably not running the White House. And it was in that moment when he was talking about all the things of immigration, is that ended up being the number 2 issue in the debates and in the 2024 elections, when Joe Biden tried to go, well, the immigration and the border and it just passed the bill. We need the bill and the border. And then it's happened. Trump looked at him. He goes, I don't know what he said. He doesn't know what he said. But let me tell you my plan. And it was it didn't just expose Biden, it exposed the fake news networks. As much as that is for a story for a different day. I just want to take a moment to say, greetings, folks. It's great to be here with you again. As I'm your host, Cash Loren, we will be shining a bright red light on the deep state and the fake news and the Democrats and the uniparty, exposing their lies and their hoaxes with the truth every single day at 8 p.m. Eastern. As the show continues to grow, as we're now moving on from X to YouTube to Rumble, over to Kick, and now over on TikTok. We just started last week. It's great to be with all of you as well. as I continue to appreciate all of your support in the show. And if you join it, take a moment and hit the subscribe button and help us spread an American First message, bringing the truth through the lies of the Democrats. Now, to bring in all that opening monologue, just explain to what's happening now, what's being exposed. Because you have to understand that the deep state thinks that they run our government and that these elected officials are just there to cut the ribbons and say fancy things in front of a camera, but they're not really supposed to rule. That's up to these unelected bureaucrats to rule over you. And that is now being exposed. And that is part of why they hate Donald Trump so much, is because he is not allowing them to rule over them. And it's part of why they try to cover up Biden's and cognitive decline so much, is because they didn't want you to know how little he was doing and how much decisions they were making. I mean, there are powers that are only meant for the president. Just like there is powers that are only meant for Congress, and there are power that is only meant for the judicial system. See, these are the separation of powers. And we see separation of powers, we don't mean that the judge is going to sit up here and write injunctions against the president and against Congress. That's not how it works. It's three equal branches, and they each have their own lane. There is authority that only the president has. And that's why we had a huge win in SCOTUS again today, as we said right from the get-go that these low-level judges are trying to write laws from the bench and they're going to lose. We'll get to more of that later. But this is explain how the deep state thinks that they rule over you, because they want a Biden. Okay, they want an empty suit puppet. They don't care if he can't find his way out of a closet, and they don't care if they have to put an Easter bunny in his way to direct him from the press conference, or they also don't care if they embarrass him by calling it a big boy press conference and putting him in a little tiny kid's desk. Because they can't stand that they'd have to answer to you, the American people. And they think that they have the right to usurp. So how does this get into Autopen, and why it's such a big deal for you, the American people? And this came over in New York Times again on a Sunday night, which is interesting that this has happened 2 weeks in a row, where we've had huge stories break on Sunday nights, trying to get ahead of the news cycle, I guess. And why we go through a lot of this too, there is some facts in here, and there's also some speculations. We'll cover through all this, because this goes through a lot of fake news, New York Times. But in this case, I think they're somewhat telling the truth. And what they're saying here is that the Autopens, and so the Autopen, it essentially just signs a pin for anybody. I mean, you can go on anywhere you want and buy an Autopen right now. Okay, the Autopen is not the scandal. The scandal is the intent. The scandal is, did Joe Biden know what he was doing when he signed these pardons, or when the pardons were signed for him? Or was this his unelected staff that were making these decisions for him when they had no authority to do so? And if that is true, if they were making these decisions for him without his authority, then what should the consequences be? And should these pardons be thrown out? Because it's essentially what we believe happened now, and this is according to the New York Times. So let's go for a clip from the New York Times article real quick. So essentially what happens is Biden did not individually approve each name on the category of pardons that applied to a large number of people his aides confirmed. So these are the very same aides, meaning that he had a rough outline that he wanted to do pardons on. And also real quick, this is separate from Hunter Biden. Okay, as far as we can tell, Joe Biden did sign Hunter Biden's pardon. And that is the only pardon that I'm aware of that doesn't follow the same signature of the rest of these Autopens, meaning they're signed exactly the same. Because that's one of the dead giveaways from something like an Autopen. Is it doesn't matter how much you practice your signature, you're going to sign it a little different every time. But it goes into, rather than risk Mr. Biden keeps signing revised versions, meaning that they were running out of time and they didn't want Joe Biden to have to go back and forth. And I can understand, right? Joe Biden, what am I reading? What's here? Who am I talking to? What's going on? Did you give me a note card to read? Where am I? Did anyone bring some ice cream? I would really like some ice cream right now. See, that would have been Joe Biden. So I understand where the aides were coming from, but it doesn't make what they did right. So Joe Biden had a rough outline for pardons. And then according to the New York Times, what happened is in his aides just revised. So meaning that Joe Biden was done about 10, where does it go? About 10:03 p.m. And then his aides took over, including someone's Mr. Zients, and that he finalized the rest of these pardons, and as far as according to New York Times, without Joe Biden's knowledge or consent. And then it was not Joe Biden, but this aide that hit reply all, approving all of these pardons. Okay, I want to be very clear here. An aide does not have that authority. Only Joe Biden, as the president, had that authority. Now, whether I like Joe Biden or I don't like Joe Biden, that's not what's at discussion here. What's in discussion is the Article 2 Constitution of the United States of America, and what's solely given to the President of the United States of America for him and for him only. Not for the Senate, not for judges, and certainly not for aides, and not for what we call the deep state or all these unelected bureaucrats who were running the White House. As far as we can tell, it was not Joe Biden. So what does that mean moving forward? Hopefully that means that all these pardons are thrown out the door. Because if Joe Biden didn't sign them, then and the authority is only his, then doesn't that mean then that these pardons are null and void? This all needs to come into court. This all needs to come before Congress right now. This makes Watergate look like a kid's playbox. You imagine we had the last 4 years. I mean, how much was Joe Biden not involved in? When was his authority? I mean, how much from Afghanistan? How much for the Middle East? How much for all these taxes that he wrote, for these big bills that he wrote, and he supposedly signed a law that printed trillions of dollars? Did Joe Biden understand any of it? Did Joe Biden have any clue where he was? I mean, his own doctor had to plead the fifth 14 times in front of Congress. Imagine if Donald Trump's doctor tried to do that. And these are very simple, easy questions. Was Joe Biden sound in mind? Did Joe Biden have dementia? When did you know Joe Biden had cancer? These are all very simple questions that him and his doctor should be able to answer. And also, on top of all this other Democrat nonsense, okay, there's nothing in the Constitution that says the president has a right to privacy. In fact, he doesn't. And he knows shorty. Anybody in the public life, the Senate or House, that's elected in office, part of that is giving up your right to privacy. And I mean on medical, and I mean on your past. I don't mean between like you and your wife or you and your kids. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is if the president of the United States has cancer, or if he has dementia, we of the United States citizens who voted for it, we have the right to know if that's true. If a doctor is lying and hiding for the president so the deep state can continue to run the federal government, we as the United States voters, we also have the right to know. And I don't care if this is Donald Trump, and I don't care if this is Joe Biden. This is not a Republican, and this is not a Democrat issue. They tried to lie, and they tried to cover all this up. See, the scandal is not the Autopen. Not one bit. The scandal is the intent behind it. The scandal is who actually made the decision. Because if it was Joe Biden that made these decisions, then fine. Although I do think we need SCOTUS to go in and talk about preemptive pardons, post and present, because this is going something that we don't have a time for. We talked for in the past. If the president can write a pardon for any federal crime, does that mean that anyone that he pardons is above the law? Can they do anything? I mean, can someone go and commit a federal crime, and as long as the president signs a piece of paper, or even in the future, can the president say for the next 10 years, you can't be convicted of a crime? See, pardons were never meant to be used that way, but that's how Joe Biden used them. And I hope this gets overthrown, because we got people like Fauci who should probably be in prison. All the January 6th committee who Looks like they lied about everything that happened on January 6th and destroyed and hid documents. They refuse to do anything live. We, as the United States voters, we have a right to know about this. And if they did commit crimes, if they did commit felonies, then nobody is above the law, right? They should be in prison too. And we're going to come back where we talk about the Democrats, especially Gavin Newsom, as he tries to make a push for president, as he goes on the Shawn Ryan show and makes a fool of himself there. We'll cover that and a whole lot more, including the SCOTUS ruling, right back after we come for this greedy profit break. This is the Cash Loren Show.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, have you wanted to start a podcast but you just don't know where to begin? Podbeam is your all-in-one solution to host your podcast and distribute it all across the internet. With my code on the affiliate link down below, you will gain also 1 month free to try the Podbeam service. This is really your one-stop solution to hosting your podcast. Record it, you put it up to just a single upload. Then that upload will distribute to all of the main platforms all across the internet, including Apple and Spotify and many, many others. It will then also automatically share your podcast across all major social media, making your job easier so you can spend more time recording the podcasts that you love and less time managing them on the back end. Podbeam is your all-in-one solution for your podcast needs. Click on the link below, the Cash Loren, and get your 1 free month today. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the Cash Loren Show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. Well, the Democrats as a party are in a whole lot of trouble, all because that they really have no bench. And they have pushed so many people out of their party that now, who can they run? As they're becoming more and more desperate as the midterms get closer and closer, and they're desperate to take back the House in the immediate future for the next year. But then also, in addition to that, is what are they going to do in 2028? As Donald Trump will not be running again, but the Republican Party is growing at such an exponential rate as the Democrats continue to lose their own base. Where is the answers for them? As this they cannot find a way out of their own box that they have put themselves into. And now you have Gavin Newsom, the radical leftist Democrat, here from California, as he is trying to put himself back in the spotlight and achieve his dream of being the president of the United States of America. Now, the first to say about Gavin Newsom is one of the things about him is he is so smooth at lying. I remember when Barack Hussein Obama was coming back on the mainstream media, and I'd almost forgotten how good at lying he is. But Gavin Newsom, he takes that to a whole different level. I mean, he can have the slickest smile looking at you right in the face and just be bald-faced lying endlessly. And it doesn't make any sense what he says, but he can say it with so much sincerity that it almost sounds true. And in his desperation to try to get on the national stage, he is trying to go after everybody that he can. Remember, like J.D. Vance just wanted to go on a simple Disneyland trip with his family, and then Gavin Newsom tried to make it all by himself. And he's trying to challenge J.D. Vance to debate, which Vance would have destroyed him. But Vance, and very well and correctly, said, you know what, thanks, goodbye. Well, now Gavin Newsom is going on the Shawn Ryan show, and he is trying to pretend here that he is some kind of moderate, thinking that he can bring independence back to the Democrat Party. Because there is no path to the White House without the middle. Yeah, that is true if you're a Republican, and that is true if you're a Democrat. There is just not enough. The country is about split thirds. Third Democrat, third Republican, and then the third's in the middle somewhere left or right. And the Democrats not only have pushed all the middle into the right, but now most of their base that would have been in the left now is also getting pushed over to the right as well. And Gavin Newsom, as big of a liar he is smart enough at least to realize this, and now he is trying to do something to bring those people back to him into the middle. But do not doubt for a single second, Gavin Newsom is not a moderate. He is a woke Democrat from California. I mean, he is more left than Kamala Harris was, and they already tried to run against her. And amazingly enough, she is still number one to be their 2028 presidential candidate. We will cover those polls here in a second. But Gavin Newsom, he went on this bizarre rant, and one of the things when I was watching the Shawn Ryan, or at least watching the clips of it, is all the weird, just the weird kind of body language he had every time he had to talk about something that really shouldn't be that complicated. Or he had to go in and he had to talk about all this, parents' rights. He's like, what? Or he had to talk about, gender affirming care. There's kind of like these little nuances on there. Or parental rights. Yeah. All right, these are very simple yes or no questions, especially for the American voters. If Donald Trump showed nothing else more than this, is that all these issues, the Democrats are on the wrong side of. I mean, they are on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue that there can be, including all the ones that I just listed. So Shawn Ryan asks a very straightforward question. Shawn Ryan, the state can come in and basically take your kids away if you're against gender affirming care. Okay, and this isn't just California. These are all the leftist states trying to push this garbage. See, because the left, you cannot doubt me when I say this. The Democrats are communists. Or they want to call themselves progressives, or they want to call themselves liberals, or they want to call themselves activism, or they want to call themselves progressivism, or they want to call about democratic socialism. All of those are really just rebranded Marxism, and it all leads to capitalism. It all leads to communism against our capitalism. And part of communism is that they believe that the government is God. And they believe that the government owns your kids. And they will try to lie to you, and they will try to pretend that it's something not different, but that is 100% what the Democrats believe. But when they go and they tell these lies, then they have to backtrack when they go on the national stage. This leads into what they're trying to do in all these blue states across the country, is they're trying to kick the parents out of the schoolrooms and then turn them over to these woke teachers who are trying to then groom these kids. Do you think you're a girl today? Do you think you're a boy? What are your pronouns? Do you want to wear a dress? You want to play with dolls? all that stuff that's happening, and these books that are so insane that on this show, I can't read them out loud. I can't show you the pictures of what's inside these books. Where if adults go into a school board and they start reading what's in these books they want to show your kids, they will tell the parents that these books are inappropriate. Well, these books are inappropriate for school board meetings. What the heck are they doing in school libraries? Of course, they can't answer that one either, and neither can Gavin Newsom. So he has to dance around this with his weird little mannerisms again. There's some, there's some nuanced language in there. Okay, this is a very simple yes or no. No. State can't take your kids because you object to them being groomed. Yes, parents have rights over their children. No, children are not adults yet, and no, they don't get to make big children decisions yet, not until they're 18. That is up to the parents to make within the bounds of our laws. But he can't say that because the Democrats don't believe it. And then also Gavin Newsom, now that he's trying to run for presidency, he's not in woke California anymore. So he can't just say what he truly believes. And never forget that this is the same Gavin Newsom who looked right in your face and lied about COVID, locked all of you up in your houses, shut down your businesses, and then went to parties and partied with his friends, no one wearing masks. Remember lying to you about all these heat waves, right, where he's sitting inside and he's wearing a jacket because the AC is so cool. These are these woke leftist liberal elites, as they believe in this two-tiered system. And then he makes an even more insane comment talking about the word that the left made up a few years ago, Latinx. Meaning they're trying to find a way to Spanish, I guess, to where it wasn't like a pronoun or something. But he goes in, I remember walking my staff and I started using the word Latinx, see, because he thought he was being, very cool and hip and with the woke language. And now next thing he goes, Hispanics goes, what are you doing? Shut up. He's like, what? Who uses that word? And he's like, I don't know. This is how out of touch the liberal elite are. And then he really starts to give away the gig and why the Democrats are working so hard to protect all these illegal aliens here in the United States. Remember when they opened their borders and let tens of millions of illegal aliens come into our country with no vetting, with no due process, with nothing? We don't know who they are. We don't know where they came from. And now Gavin Newsom is accidentally explaining why. As he explains, in fact, he brags. 69% of the undocs, meaning illegal aliens, because they like to use woke language, have been in California for over a decade. Why? Why are they here? If they're illegal, how come they're, one, not being deported, and then two, why are you trying to stop the Trump administration for deporting them? But I think all of you independent thinkers here on the Cash Loren show, would know the answer why. And then he goes on to make it very clear that why California must not focus on mass deportation because of the millions of illegals that have been here in the United States. And remember, like, our census only counts heads. It does not count your legal status. How many of you knew that? It doesn't matter when they count heads for census if you're illegal or you're not. They just count how many people are there. Okay, that's funding, and that's also house seats. So when we say like there's a literal foreign invasion that's causing foreign interference, it's not Russia, 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 Russia. It's the illegals that are here in this country right now. And then he goes on to continue to make some even more weird explanation and continue to show just how racist the Democrats are. I mean, listen to this whopper. This will completely startle you. I still can't believe that he said this, and then he thinks that he's going to be president. He says here, over half of California's construction workers are illegal aliens. Well, wait a minute. I thought the Democrats were saying that the illegals were only here picking their crops, doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do. See, what they lie to you is that's only a couple percentage points. most of them are working like construction or working in like manufacturing plants. They never want to tell you that because they know that Americans will do the jobs, so they have to lie. But then it gets even worse. And over 41% in agricultural work. So he's saying that the California economy is almost completely dependent on illegal aliens who don't have rights in this country. How, okay, I got so many questions. Like, how are they being employed? How do they have social security numbers? How do they have jobs over American citizens? Do these employers that are hiring them, they must know that they're illegal. Are they on the books? Are they off the books? Are they being reported to the federal government? So these are all questions that we need to know. And then the absolute insane thing that he says at the end there, this is what he says. This is Gavin Newsom, who wants to be president of the United States of America. He says this about all the illegal aliens, 50% in construction, 41% in agricultural, according to Gavin Newsom. He says this is the reason why Americans wouldn't do these jobs, because he doesn't see people that look like him doing these jobs. Meaning what? White Americans, I guess? Is that what he's saying? White American males won't work construction? Won't operate equipment on farms? Is that really what Gavin Newsom says? So we have to allow the illegal invasion of our country because Gavin Newsom thinks that you, the American people, won't do work here in the United States. At the same time, they're trying to lie about Medicaid and Social Security and giving people to sit at home and play video games or give it to people who are here illegally. This racket is going to blow people's minds as we're just starting to open the door and all this stuff. I mean, Gavin Newsom then goes on to continue to lie about the economy. See, what he does is then he tries to say that the California gives more to the federal government than what they get back. And this is blatantly lying by placing two things together. Okay, California doesn't give back to the government. The people who work there, who pay federal taxes, give back to the federal government through their own federal taxes. This is not California just because they happen to live there. And California was a large state before the Democrats took over. So this is, of course, blatantly lying, trying to mix the two things together. And then the part that he leaves out is that if the California is so rich, then why are they over $27 billion in debt now and subsidizing the illegal invasion of our country? You know, they're so far in debt, then why are they giving cash to these illegal aliens? Why are they stopping them from being deported? He also goes right back to the LA riots when ICE moved in and started deporting, and then they called it a peaceful protest. But of course, thanks to the independent creators, we can now show it for who it really was, as these people were violently attacking ICE agents and border agents and DHS. And then Newsom, again, is angry because Donald Trump did his right and took the National Guard because Gavin Newsom refused to protect his state. And so he goes on. It's another weird rant after the ICE officers, and then after the mass deportations continue to escalate. I'll never forget this moment when Gavin Newsom, when he was bragging about how he had won in court, right? Because the Democrats keep going to these low-level judges and getting these insane rulings that they know are going to get overruled. But then Gavin Newsom, after he got that low-level ruling, he was quick to run on TV and brag about how he had defeated Trump and now how he was going to take the National Guard back. And now he was going to let your cities burn. And then an hour later, it was overturned. And Donald Trump sent the National Guard, sent the Marines, and stopped the radical leftist activists from burning down your cities. And this leads into, right before we go into our next session here, is talk about these polls, because Gavin Newsom right now is number 3. And I want to bring this up because part of what we talk about as polls is I always say to take polls with a grain of salt. Because polls, they are not meant to inform you. They're meant to manipulate you. And often they're asked in very small quantities in areas that they know they'll get an answer that they think are favorable. I mean, how many of you that are middle, how many of you conservative have ever been asked to contribute in one of these polls? I'm betting the answer is pretty close to zero. If they even actually poll people. I mean, they say they do, but do they? I don't know. However, and this is interesting because as much as we say not take these grain of salt, often this is all we have to go on. But according to them, Harris is up 26% right now, and she is down 6%. The one that lost all 7 swing states to Donald Trump, who lost the popular vote, who lost ground in every single demographic except Black women. The Democrats are seriously considering running her again as the president. The one who was first out in 2020, if you remember, who couldn't get any support at all. And then it was so bad when they kicked Joe Biden out, they knew they couldn't run a primary, so they just chose her again. Remember, the party of democracy just made the decision for you, the American voter, that took away 14 million of your votes, and nah, we'll do it ourselves. We are the liberal elite. And then Buttigieg, I hope they try. Man, please let Mr. Pothole try to be president. And then, of course, Newsom the liar. And the thing is for them, that they have no one to run. I mean, Newsom worked in California because it's a deep blue California where they have a supermajority. And Newsom, right now, he can try to pretend that he's a moderate, and he can try to pretend that he wants to go on these debates to get his name up higher. But when push comes to shove, it won't work. Because now independent journalism and independent creators have mass more influence than the mainstream media. And why is this so important? Because they can't do what they did for like Barack Hussein Obama. They can't just lie anymore. And if the story's bad, like Gavin Newsom lying about California, the fake news networks, the MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, they would all just lie or not cover the story. But now we have a bigger platform than they do. And now we can actually show the truth. See, that was what was missing for all these years, is most of America was like you, somewhere in the middle. But they couldn't get the information because they could only go to the fake news networks, or they could only go to the newspaper or to the TV. So while many of you didn't agree with it, you would think, well, maybe I'm the oddball here. You know, because if all the news are saying the same thing, and all the news are not talking about the same stories, and I open up my paper and they're all saying the same thing, well, then that must be that's what most of America thinks, when that was never true for a single moment. They were blatantly lying. And they weren't just hiding stories, they were doing something far, far worse, marrying a truth to a lie, where they would tell you the bits that they wanted you to know so you would come to the right conclusion, and then leaving out the facts that they didn't want you to know, because if you knew the facts, you would never come to the conclusion that they want you to come to. And this is where Gavin Newsom and any other Democrat they try to run right now will absolutely fall flat on their face. 17% for the Democrats is way too high. It's probably much, much lower than that, because they're on the wrong side of every single issue and they have no answer. And with that, we're going to go take a quick greedy profit break. We come back. SCOTUS gave Donald Trump and you, the American people, a huge win for parental rights, something that Gavin Newsom is against. We'll talk about that and Don Bongino and the Epstein list a whole lot when we come back. You won't want to miss any of it. This is the Cash Loren Show.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, TRexPets.com is your home for your animals' needs, from their food to their toys to any other accessories. You can find it all over at TRexPets.com. Stop giving your money to these woke box stores who don't care about your values and push all this woke nonsense garbage. Enough is enough. Over at TRexPets.com, they are America First, conservative, loving family, guaranteed to be woke free. That is over at TRexPets.com. Go there today, sign up, and with your $50 purchase, you'll receive a free gift with your order. That is over at TRexPets.com. Put your money where your values are, guaranteed to be woke free, unlike these giant big box stores that put America last. Go to TRexPetStores.com right now and buy your dog food, your cat food, and other supplies. Head over right now over at TRexPets.com. That is T-Rex.Pets.com. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the Cash Loren show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. These low-level activist judges are trying to usurp Donald Trump's authority as president of the United States of America. And we said right from the beginning that this judicial coup will fail, as SCOTUS needs to hurry up and put an end to it. And while they still refuse to at a larger level, which they should be doing right now, and why Congress refuses to do their job and put an end to this coup, and that is what it is. Okay, this is a judicial coup. You see, Donald Trump, he has rights under our Constitution that are exclusive to him. These judges have absolutely no authority to make rulings on many of these issues. Just like over in Congress, they have exclusive authority in Congress that Trump does not have, nor do these judges have. It's not that the judges are up here and they are a check and balance, a yes or no, sir, a mother may I over the president and over Congress. That is not separation of powers. That is a judicial coup. And that's why we had another very huge ruling today from SCOTUS, as they're helping Donald Trump do one of the many things that he promised, ending the Department of Education and returning schools back to the states. And hopefully this leads to ending public education altogether and bringing back school choice throughout the United States of America. You see, the Department of Education, there's a couple different parts to it here. For one, Donald Trump can't completely end the Department of Education with a swipe of a pen. See, because part of it actually is put into law, meaning that it would take an act of Congress to completely dismantle the Department of Education. However, that is a very small piece of what the Department of Education actually is today. And most of the Department of Education has just been expanded through the years by executive order. And the parts that are expanded by executive order can just be taken away by executive order as well. And that's the part that Donald Trump has been doing. And these judges think that they can just sign a piece of paper and say that Donald Trump doesn't have that authority, when he 100% does, just like every other president does. And SCOTUS agreed today, ruling that this is Donald Trump. So this is a major victory for parents across the United States, as we are going to do what we promised to do, and we're going to bring education back to the states. As Linda McMahon may begin very important process. This is continuing to reduce the Department of Education and fire a lot of these woke bureaucrats who think that they can make better decisions for children than you, the parents, can. I can't stress enough how huge this is for the United States, as it really comes down to parental rights. Your children should not be stuck in these failing schools, or these schools that don't teach your values. You know, if a school wants to teach this weird LGBTQ crap, or their school wants to teach this BLM crap, parents need to know about it. And if they don't want their kids learning that garbage, then they should be able to pull their kids out. And it shouldn't just be between this failing government school or homeschooling their kids and giving up their careers and their lives. There needs to be the right answer, and this is school choice. This is where capitalism really comes into play. If you go and you pull your kid out, you say, I take my tax money because that's tied to the child. So I'm going to pull it out of that school. This school over here, this aligns with my beliefs. So I'm going to take my money, my taxes, and I'm going to put my kid in that school. So that's school choice with the voucher system. No one loses their tax money. This actually makes it better for the poor. This actually makes it better for those that are in these big government school districts who are stuck. Stuck because part of it is they don't have the money to put their kids like in private schools, or they don't have the ability to homeschool. And this would give the option, and this would also do what capitalism does best. It makes merit great, because then the best people will build the best schools, and the best teachers will go to those schools to earn the most amount of money. And the parents then will invest their money in what provides their kids with the best education, making a fair ground, instead of being stuck in these government schools where these people in Washington, D.C. think that they get to make all the decisions for you. Well, they get to tell you that they get to groom your child or teach them all these weird woke activists. And if you don't like it, then they're going to sick the FBI on you and call you domestic terrorists for knocking on school board morning and asking why they're showing your children adult content. This must come to an end. And this is another issue that is 80-20 towards us, the American people, against the 20% of the Democrats who continue to be on the wrong side of every single issue. And then we're going to try to use the last 5 minutes to cover up what's happening in the Epstein aisle, because the cover up is a very good word for that. And part of this that has been so bad for Donald Trump's administration is that it's a completely unforced error. Donald Trump ran on 20 things that he was going to run for in this country. And none of them was the Epstein list or MLK or RFK or any of these other classified doc cases. But then he said he was going to release them all. And then Pam Bondi put out these fake binders, and then she said everything was sitting on her desk. Nothing comes out. And then one of the most worst, I think, unforced errors I've ever seen in politics is then they backed and they tried to pretend that none of this is happening, and they just wanted to move on. Now, I don't know all the details. No one really does, except for very few people. But I've never known Trump to blatantly lie. Not especially something like this. And the Democrats are desperately lying because they're trying to run on something, anything now, to get back into the midterms. And they're trying to lie about the Epstein list when they seem to forget that they had 4 years and they released nothing. And now they're going to have huge egg on their face again if this all does come out, because it looks like it's going to. And this is I think, really big change in the way media works now. Because thanks to really big podcasters and content creators who talked about this and saying a lot of the same things that I'm saying about how this is such a big unforced error. And if you're going to be the president of transparency, then be the president of transparency. Okay, get out in front of a mic, get in front of a press conference, and just tell everybody where it's at. If there is no list, then tell them that this is what we have. If everything was destroyed, then tell them that it was destroyed. And if you're going to say a thing like this is made up by the Obama administration, then show the evidence. But to say that we don't think that anything happened on the Epstein Island is very far-fetched to believe, to say at the very least. Because something happened. There's enough, I think, at least to say that. Although, as far as people want to push this, I haven't been able to find enough evidence to go that far. If it is, please show it. Because I agree that no one should be above the law. And if somebody was doing something with minors, then they belong in prison. I don't care how rich they are. I don't care how famous they are. And I don't care how many people in DC end up going to prison. If they have to build a brand new swamp prison for them, then build it. If we have to elect a whole new federal government, then elect it. If that is what happened, then so be it. But this is not going anywhere. And Trump, his administration, screwed up big time with this. And this leads to Maxwell. She's the only one in prison, might I add. And she is in prison for exploiting and abusing of minor girls. Okay, well, to who? If she's in prison for whatever happened to these girls, who did it to these girls? You see the problem here. And it turns out now that no one wanted to ever know anything for her. She was just convicted and she was just thrown into prison, and no one ever wanted to hear her story or what happened in the government according to these files and to these statements. And now it's saying that Maxwell is happy to sit down with Congress and tell her story. And if she does, I also say not only should she tell her story, but it shouldn't be behind closed doors. You know, the Trump administration, if they want to be truly the ones that are open and honest and transparent, then this needs to be open doors. And the American people need to hear it. And I understand the Pam Bondi side where she's saying, like, whatever happened to these children in video, okay, we don't need to see that. But we can hear the facts about it. You can tell us the facts, and you can keep the video hidden, and you can keep the names of the victims hidden. It is not hard to do all of that and hold public meetings. This is the corner that they put themselves in, and it's by their own making. This is the most frustrating part about it. The Democrats are lying about Trump. They are blatantly lying, trying to put this on Trump, because they had 4 years and they could have done it. So if they had Trump on film doing these awful things, they wouldn't have wasted their time with Jean Carroll. They wouldn't waste their time with the New York fake felonies. They wouldn't have wasted their time with the boxes hoaxes, and they wouldn't have wasted their time with impeachments. Okay, they would have locked Donald Trump up for that. At the very least, they would have leaked it all to the press. But of course they didn't. And I think the very obvious reason why is because they don't have the goods. With that, we're at the top of the hour. We'll be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. I appreciate each and every one of you, how fast we're growing, especially over here on TikTok, as we have just started on the program on there, along with all the other places that are now simul streaming the Cash Loren Show. If you're enjoying this, take a moment, hit the like, and make sure you repost and share an American First message. We will be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the Cash Loren. Well, independent thinkers, we have come to the top of another hour. The rest of the stories will have to go back in the stack. If you enjoyed this content, take a moment, hit the subscribe, turn on notifications, most importantly, share a conservative message with your friends and family. We will be back Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on the Cash Loren Show. We will go and we will expose and fight the fake news networks who have been getting away with lying to you for decades. Our content will always be free, but if you'd like to support more, you can do so monetarily over at locals at the Cash Loren Show. And there's great rewards and benefits for doing so. For only about a cup of coffee a month, you will receive exclusive articles and you'll have your name at the end of the video, just like these other fine patriots have. If that sounds interesting to you, go over to locals right now for just a cup of coffee a month and help independent creators stay free, keep the lights on, and continue to expose the fake news networks. We'll see you again on the next episode. This is the Cash Loren Show.